Yo, what up, Smooth Scalers? Brad here, and welcome to another episode of Word of the Week, where we look at the words that we use and the language that we use to try to make it better, because language is really, really important, but at the same time, it's also this like sloppy tool that we use to try to communicate ideas, and it doesn't always work out. If you want the full backstory on why I do this series, I'll put a link somewhere on the video and then in the description to the very first episode we did where I really dive more into the why behind language and looking at words. You can go check that out. But today we're going to dive in and we're going to look at a word that I actually made up with my boys. And there's been a couple of these in the Word of the Week series. This word is STOOFY. It's S-T-O-O-F-Y. And it's the combination of the word stupid and goofy. And if you're a human, I'm assuming you are, then you probably at some point have slipped into this STOOFY mode. So I'll explain it. And if you want to know the full context of like why me and my boys end up making up words, you can go watch another episode we did. We talk about the word SLARTY. It's a good episode just for the word itself. But I also give the backstory that led to the creation of some of these words. So I'll put a link somewhere on here and then in the description, you can go check that one out. So STOOFY is this thing that we do as humans when we're uncomfortable. We start to act stupid and goofy to try to deflect any sort of seriousness. Now, in some cases, like it's really not that big of a deal, but it can become a problem when we're using it as a sort of defense mechanism or a shield against having a serious, and by serious, by the way, what I mean is a meaningful conversation. I don't necessarily mean like grave or heavy. I just mean a meaningful conversation. So here are some common scenarios where this might happen. Somebody gives you a genuine compliment and you don't know how to take it. So you get really awkward about this genuine compliment and you feel the need to insert some sort of joke to totally deflect it rather than just accept what it is that they're saying. I've never done that, but I've heard that happens sometimes. Another scenario would be that you're about to have a meaningful, genuine, maybe a serious conversation, like a real conversation with anybody. It could be with me to one of my kids. I want to have a real, genuine conversation about like, hey, what's going on with you? What's happening? And then they get awkward with that. And so they start to make jokes, or they come to me and they want to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I get awkward about the seriousness, again, not necessarily like the gravity, but like the genuineness, the realness of the conversation. So I start to get where I got to make all these extra jokes to fill in this awkwardness that really I brought to the table in the first place. Another one might be that if you're teaching a class and the people that are coming to the class and the material of the class is more like life, like it's real, right? There's real material about life and the things that really go on. And in particular, for me, I've had classes where I'm teaching youth and the youth come together and they're not necessarily, depending on who it is, they haven't necessarily got to the point where they're comfortable or conditioned or they have like any experience having real conversations. And so you put them together and now what you have is you've got stoofiness multiplied by however many kids are in the class. And the reality is, by the way, this also happens with adults. So we can't even just throw kids under the bus because you get a bunch of adults together in a class talking about a real topic and there's this like awkward, like I don't want to say what maybe I'm struggling with, so I'm going to kind of joke it off and I don't know if I can just come and be authentic, so I got to bring like my representative and I got to pretend to be something else just in case because I don't really know with all the people around. So anyway, like I said, if you're a human, at some point you have probably entered into this realm of stoofiness. So this happened, the word came because this happened with some of my boys. I'm like this weird blend of, there are a lot of people like this, so I don't mean to make it sound like I think I'm unique, but my dad likes to tease and likes to joke a lot, and I've adopted that. So I love to have fun, I love to joke, I love to tease, like I love to just like kind of play around. It helps keep life lighter, right? But at the same time, if I'm studying stuff, like I get into like genuine, real, I love to look at real conversation about what's going on with me, what could be going on with other people. Like I like to get into the realness of it. I can flip back and forth between those really easily. My kids have definitely adopted. We like to have fun and we mess around and we play around and we joke around all the time. And then there's times where I like want to have, and there were times where this word came from, like I wanted to have like a real conversation with my boys. And anytime we tried to, like immediately it was like over the top stoofiness. And I'm like, dude, you guys are killing me. Can we, for 5 minutes, have just a real genuine conversation where I don't have to like try to make it through this this representative barrier that you're putting up, which is all jokes and all whatever. And so we came up with the word STOOFY to call it out. And it was similar to when we came up with SLARTY. It was like, all right, hey, let's have a conversation. I just want to establish this thing so that we're aware that there's this thing called stoofiness. And I'm going to call out when I think it's happening, which really is code for, hey, I want to have a real conversation and you're trying to goof around. And I know that we might have just been goofing around, but this is like, yo, for a second, stop the goofing around. Let's have a real conversation. And that term became very useful as a tool between me and my children, or really me and anybody else where I've created and established, hey, there's this thing called stoofiness. Became really valuable because it could be a cue, a signal for, okay, I'm ready to move out of just the joking. Let's just be genuine for a second. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that the rest of the conversation has to be like crazy, crazy serious. It just means that the intent of the rest of the conversation is, I don't need all that other joking, like representative type stuff in the way. Let's just have a real conversation. And some jokes, like we can laugh, some jokes might come out of it, but we're gonna have a genuine conversation. So there were, with my boys and then also with some of the classes that I was in, there were a couple of rules that we created around it. So one, if I was in a class, I just established at the beginning, like when I come to class, I'm ready to learn. That's why I'm here. Like I wanna have real conversations. With my boys, I would just try to call out like, hey, this is a real conversation. So we're not doing the stoofiness thing, right? So you got to set the frame for the conversation. And that's why stoofy is such a great word, because it captures the essence of how we feel. We call it out and be like, let's take that off the table. Now, the rules, once we'd established that we're trying to have a real conversation, so we're not trying to just do a stoofy conversation, the rules were, one, you can still make jokes, but here are some rules when you go to make jokes. Number one, they have to be good. Like, if you're gonna make a joke, then make sure that it's a good one. And so like I just remember, like I'm in classes, I'm like, I don't care if you guys, if there's a joke to make it, but it better be good. And if not, then I'm gonna actually restrict your ability to make a joke in the future till you earn right the back to do it by actually having a good joke, number one. Number two, if the joke is going to take the course of the conversation and then change it to where we're talking about something else, that's not a joke we're making right now. Like we can make that joke later, but that's stoofy, because stoofy's trying to redirect the conversation to some other topic that's not what we're actually trying to have a real conversation around. So that was sort of rule number two, is if you are gonna make a joke and the joke's funny, if it's not, like some jokes will just, they'll further the conversation, or they're within the scope of the topic of whatever you're talking about. Some are like squirrel, and then we're way off over here, right? So like we don't need the squirrel jokes. If you're gonna make a joke, one, it's gotta be good. Two, it's gotta be within the context of what we're talking about. And then the third rule, which is important if you have multiple people that are a part of the conversation, is if somebody else already made the joke, then you don't get to make it. So you have to be smart enough, like quick enough to make it first. But I've been in a lot of classes, I've been in conversations with just my three boys where it's like, first kid makes the joke, right? And then the second one's like, oh, I'm gonna take that joke, I'm gonna make it again and make it again. It's like 5 minutes later, we haven't gotten past the same joke. I'm like, it can be funny, but again, this is not SLARTY. We're not just totally screwing around, we're trying to have a real conversation. So like, he already made the joke, great. We laughed at it, it helped, whatever. It's still within the topic of the conversation. Now let's keep the conversation going. And then the fourth rule is just, even if you have a new joke, be aware of the fact that if we're trying to have a real genuine conversation, the frequency of jokes that take us off topic of actually making progress in the topic, that's called being stoofy. Because now we're just like, we're focused more on trying to be funny or goofy or whatever, rather than we are in making progress. You can be seriously diving into a topic that is real, that is genuine, and have a joke come up and laugh about it, and then be right back to like, and then we're still making progress. The point where you feel, whether it's, again, this applies to me, I'm talking about it through the lens of like, I'm the teacher, but it applies to me as much as it does to the people that I'm teaching, because I'll do the same thing when I go to masterminds, or when I'll sit down with my team, or if I have like a one-on-one, or if I'm trying to talk a conversation with my spouse or a business partner, where like, if I get uncomfortable or awkward, and then my brain wants to go to, oh, I'm gonna start to make jokes, and then I make a lot of them. It's like, no, we don't need that. Because what it actually does is it detracts from the real, genuine conversation that's gonna make real, genuine progress. So anyway, that's a word for you to throw into the mix. Stoofy, stupid and goofy, where we behave that way as a defense mechanism because we start to feel awkward because there's a real, genuine conversation that's happening. It could come as simple as a compliment. So if you're always making jokes, like self-deprecating jokes or deflecting jokes anytime somebody tries to compliment you, try this on for size for the next 5 compliments. Just say, thank you. And if the compliment was, hey, thank you so much for doing this, just say, you're welcome, and receive it. Try that. Don't be stoofy. Just actually accept it. Okay. Now, if we're talking like in the form of like small conversations or even like teaching, try to play around with how could you introduce the concept of stoofy so that the frame for the entire conversation or the class or the discussion is, hey, let's just have a real conversation for 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes about this topic, and let's not do the stoofiness thing. And then if you want to, you could go as far as introducing those 4 rules. Number 1, if you have a joke, make sure it's good. Number 2, if you have a joke, make sure it's not going to take us off onto another topic where in the 15-minute conversation, we had to spend 8 minutes trying to get back on topic. Number 3, if somebody else makes the joke, you don't get to make it later. And then number 4, the density of jokes in this conversation, if we have too many, then we're being stoofy, and because we're awkward, we're just avoiding a real, genuine conversation where we can make progress. All right, so that's it for today. Stoofy. Let me know how it works. Let me know how or where you figure out how to implement it into your conversations and into whatever you do. And if you come up with a better word, like a better version, you're like, oh, I like this one better, I would love to hear it, because then I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it into my language, my little bag of words that I use to try to improve conversation. All right, that's it. If you like the video, hit the like button, post in the comments, what did you like about the video? When you go use this, I would love to hear what happens and what you think about it. Drop that in there too. You want more stuff like this, subscribe to the channel. Going through all the things I'm supposed to say at the end. If you want to get more stuff like this, and then also like the business side where we talk about strategies, tactics to get clients, make them happy, run your team, etc., you can go sign up for the Smooth Scaling newsletter. Go to smoothscaling.co. There'll be a link in the description for all of the stuff I'm mentioning. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So anyway, that's it. Hopefully I'll see you on the newsletter. If not, I'll see you on the next video. If not, I don't know, maybe we'll meet up sometime in person. So that's what I got, and I will catch you wherever it is that I catch you next. All right, have a good one.